And now, Ethan Sweetland-May. Ethan.
That's all right. That's good. I think it's good. I've worked on a garbage truck for the last 10 years. And I was 21 when I started, and I basically knew what I think everyone knows about working on a garbage truck. Like, it's a good blue-collar job. It's probably gross, and hopefully I'll get buff. Kind of. And, you know, my first couple weeks being trained, like I worked at this small rural hauler in southern Indiana, and like all the old guys, like the garbage veterans, they had great like monosyllabic names like Rob and Dale and Jeff, and Brian was from Tennessee, but you know, they're generally, and like, you know, they're like showing me the ropes, and I'm starting to get the hang of this thing, and I'm kind of surprised by how much fun it is. Like, if you've never hung off the back of a garbage truck and like you're whipping through the wind and you're dodging tree branches and like you're like, kid, get out of the way! Like, it's a blast. It's kind of like being like on an aggressive parade. And, you know, I was really having a pretty good time, and because, you know, I never planned on being a garbage man, but I'm like, you know, I can do this. And then I was working with one of the guys, and he's like, so what made you want to do one of the most dangerous jobs in the country? And I was like, it is. Because I don't think about that kind of thing. And it turns out, yeah, like, you're twice as likely to get killed as a police officer, and 7 times more likely than a firefighter. And I didn't know that. And I was like, so I was kind of putting me on edge, right? And like, so the first most dangerous place on the back of a garbage truck I found out is, you know, when you're packing up in the back, right? Because at every stage of that pack, the back is full of missiles. There are fluidy kind of missiles, and there are hard kind of missiles. And you think like once it's all the way up, like you're clear, but that last 3 inches is still 2,000 PSI of packing pressure. And my first day, I found out what happens to a gallon of rotten milk when it is in that last 3 inches. And I have that day after tomorrow experience watching it come rushing down the back in a torrent of chunky dairy and just getting plastered. And even that was kind of like hilarious, even though it was awful. I'm like, can you believe this? And the guy training me, though, he lost it. He's like on like this hair trigger. I was totally caught off guard. He's like, what's wrong with people? Who does this? Who doesn't dump out the milk before they, you know, throw it in the trash? And I'm like, whoa, it's just, I mean, are you actually crying over spilt milk? Like, and I came to realize a lot of the old guys were like, kind of like, you know, any little thing, like, can you believe it? Like, throwing away dirt. You live on 20 acres. What are you throwing away dirt for? But like, I really did enjoy, I was really enjoying the job. And, you know, I did some math the other night, and in the last 10 years, I've picked up somewhere like smelled, seen, lifted, somewhere in the neighborhood of like 21 million pounds of garbage, to like be conservative. And I think somewhere around like 15 million, I started to see where they were coming from, you know, like, and especially like the one thing that like really started to like wear me down was everybody else on the road, right? Like, I'm like, this is why it's dangerous, like, because like there are 2 kinds of people on the road. There are people who have never driven before and people who think they're delivering a pregnant woman to the hospital, like, and those are the only 2 kinds of people. And like, there's only so many times when you can like cautiously like look out behind the back of the truck with like a can and like barely dodge someone going by before you start to like, your like, you know, optimism in people just starts to get worn down. You're like I began to realize the problem with the old guys was that it wasn't an accident. It wasn't like, hey, you know, can you believe this crazy thing? It was personal. It was like, these people are out to get us. Like, these people don't care about us. No one thinks about the garbage man. And for a long time, I was like, you know, you guys have been out here too long. And then I was like, oh my God, I've been out here too long. And it actually really started to get to me. And like, you know, and I knew it was starting to get bad whenever like I'd see someone coming up behind me and I'd throw my door open and I'd jump down to the oncoming lane like, come on! What are you gonna do? see the flashing lights, slow down. I'm the kind of guy, like, I don't think about dying, let alone being killed. And so, I just don't think about that kind of thing. But I do think about, like, avoiding those things, And so, as, like, time went on, I was like, it's kind of crazy that I've never really had the big one. Like, I've had some close calls, I've had frantic drivers go by, but I've never had the moment where it was like, wow, I almost died. And then March of 2018, I was picking up on this 2-lane country road, and there was a camel's hump of hills. And I knew this hump, and I knew that people love to hit it and ramp, and at the bottom of it, you could, like, put a swimming pool, and you could not see it until you were over the edge of that hill. And I hate that spot, and everyone hates that spot who does that route. And I was sitting at the top of the hill. I made sure nobody was coming up behind me, and I went down there, got the can, and I was on my way back, and I just was about to lift it, and I just saw it. Like, I don't even know what I saw, but I just turned and I started running as I heard the brakes lock up and the screeching. And I got about 3 steps away before a pickup truck hauling a trailer full of roofing supplies smashed into the back of my garbage truck. And I just got hit in the back with shattering glass and pieces of grill. And it happened so fast, I didn't even really know I'd started running until I turned around and he knocked my truck like 10 feet forward, and his was a wreck. I could see his engine in the passenger seat next to him. And he started to get out, and like he couldn't breathe, and I knew his ribs were broken, and he was bleeding all over the place. And I was like, man, are you okay? Because they don't train you for that when they're teaching you how to do garbage stuff. And I helped him over to the side of the road, and he couldn't catch his breath, and he was wanting me to call his aunt, and his phone was shattered, and he couldn't call, and his hands were broken and bleeding. And so, like, I call his aunt, and I tell him what's happening while the ambulances arrive and stuff, and they all show up, and he goes to the hospital, and they clean everything up, and I had like 60 more stops of garbage to get, and you cannot damage a garbage truck, people. Like that was fine. And my supervisor's like, I guess you're good to go. And so I got the rest of it, but it weighed on me. I sent my wife pictures of the crash, and she broke it. She like called me like crying. She's like, you almost died. And I was like, I almost died. Like, what's wrong with people? Like don't people care? And it really, like, I lost sleep over it. I was like, what's going on here? And then I about 5 months went by, and this kind of rode on me, and all of a sudden, like, this pickup truck is going the other way, slams on its brakes, and I'm like, oh, come on, what are you gonna do, guy? And it's the guy that hit me, and he throws open the door of his truck, and he jumps out, and he's like crying, and he just comes up and he grabs me, and he's like, I've thought about you every day for like 5 months, man. I am so glad you're okay. I am so sorry. And I got back in my truck, and I went back to work, and I was like, it's not that people don't care, it's that you don't think about it. Like, nobody thinks about it. We're all going too fast to like stop and think about what we're doing and what might happen to someone because of what we're doing. And man, I like was thinking about this. I got to the next stop and like started packing up and went around to the cab, and a gallon of milk exploded and came gushing out the back at me. Thank you.